Yeah, Mr. Peanut you're thinking of. That's the good guy with the monocle.
Mr. Peanut, yeah. You ever drank Natty Bohemian?
I have.
Natty Bo in Baltimore. Yeah. That kind of looks like the Monopoly Man.
I do not remember. Hold on.
Except he doesn't even have a monocle. He just has one eye, I think.
Yeah, that's just a freak.
Like a Cyclops.
That guy's just some fucking Picasso nightmare freak. Did they forget? Is he winking? Is he a fish?
He's just missing an eye. People in Baltimore are weird.
Strange icon. And you're saying that this guy looks like Evola.
Yeah. Well, no. Evola doesn't have facial hair.
Wait, I'm gonna look up where his...
He just straight up looks like a villain, though.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he does. God damn, he really does.
Yeah.
I mean,
holy shit.
Especially when he's old. I don't know if you'll watch that interview with him.
Yeah. I mean, at all ages, it seems like he's villainous looking.
I mean, he was a fucking villain. When they interviewed him, he was like an ideologue of terrorist groups. They were killing dozens of civilians with bombs.
Oh. Another one of those guys.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to The Empire Never Ended with Boris, Fritz, and Ray.
Hello.
Hey.
We're all dukes and barons over here.
Yeah.
I'll just, I guess you can just name yourself anything. Vicomte. I'm Vicomte Fritz from now on.
Yes, there we go. I want some like weird, even more archaic and obscure title.
Despot.
Despot.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Despot Boris. It suits you. I like it. It carries some power,
It does.
Yeah.
It's funny because despot is only used like in a positive sense by like Serbian monarchists. I guess some others have despots as well, but
I would guess anybody associated with like Constantinople probably wouldn't mind the word despot, right?
I mean, it's a Byzantine title.
Byzantine title, yeah. It's a good one.
Hold on. How about this? What do you think a Ritter does? That's a noble title. Here you go. How about this? Prince Elector Ray.
Okay.
Oh, that's a good one. Wait, what's a Ritter?
Well, that's a Holy Roman Empire title, which is the one that Evola likes a lot.
Oh.
Which one? Prince Elector?
Holy Roman Empire.
Ah, okay. Yeah. A Ritter is a designation used as a title of nobility in German-speaking areas. It denotes the second lowest rank within the nobility.
It means basically knight, I think.
Oh, it's below the Baron. So I don't know how you feel about that. How about a Landgrave Fritz? Anyway,
Landgrave? Okay, yeah.
All sorts of nobility, really, lots of nobility to talk about. With this Evola fella, but the most important one is probably being an Aryan dude. Am I wrong?
It's pretty important. Yes.
All right. Well, how's that take us to terrorism? All I'm hearing is a fella likes, the old ways, the tradition.
Maybe you will try to see that. Maybe you will see some glimpses of the terror coming at the end of this episode.
Are you going to show me a video of him talking? Because
no,
that does it too.
But in the next episodes, when we continue reading Evola's other books, we'll go much further into the terrorism territory. For now, we're just finishing off this Revolt against the Modern World book, our second episode on the book. In the first one, we talked about the first part of the book. Now we're talking about the second part, which is called The Genesis and the Face of the Modern World.
Okay.
I thought the book will mostly be about, the modern world. It is not.
Right. Oh.
So
misleading title, I would say.
He kind of goes to the same territory that he did in the first part, but now in a different way. This is how he explains it himself. In the first part, which had a morphological and typological character, I attempted to draw from various testimonies those elements that were more suitable for characterizing in a universal and meta-historical fashion the nature of the traditional spirit and the traditional view of the world, of man, and of life. So he says, now my approach is going to be different. I will attempt to follow the dynamic unfolding of the traditional and anti-traditional forces in history. So
sounds ambitious.
Yes, he's a Hegelian.
It's a lot of it's quite ambitious. So I kind of skipped most of it actually in my notes.
Oh, word, good.
I read all of it, of course, but now in the end I decided not to include quite a bit of chapters in this episode because it's way too much. In like very specific ways, he's also using like kind of a bit confusing terminology because when we talked about the cycles in our Renegade episode, I think that like the word the traditionalists use the word cycle for the entirety of all the 4 ages. There are 4 ages from the golden one to the dark age, the Kali Yuga, and starting from the most advanced and kind of the age of gods to the present materialistic degenerated age, and then so there are these 4 ages. Every one of them lasts like for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years in some cases, because they also get shorter and shorter. And I think that they used the cycle is for this entire period consisting out of the 4 ages. And then, after the Dark Age, a new cycle begins with a new Golden Age. But Evola also calls the ages themselves cycles.
Okay, sure, I see.
But then also he uses the word cycle for various civilizations and cultures which also exist within those ages. So
within a bigger cycle, there are smaller cycles.
Yes.
Whoa,
so
dude,
there is a bigger cycle, and then Kali Yuga is a cycle as a part of that larger cycle. But then he also says things like the Roman cycle, the like Eastern Aryan cycle,
the
and so on.
unicycle.
Yeah, so, lots of cycles there. It's a bit confusing.
Yeah. Cycles upon cycles. All right.
Yeah, so he starts with the doctrine of the 4 ages, which is something that we already talked about. So he says that this is an idea characteristic for the traditional man, and this is the idea of regression or of a fall from higher states. The humanity or beings in general have stooped to states increasingly conditioned by human material and contingent elements, he says. So this is an involutive process. They are explicitly against the idea of evolution. And it started in a distant past, and so distant it's almost unknown to us.
50, 60 years ago.
Yes. So tradition gives various names for this process. For example, one of them is Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods.
Ragnarok, yeah.
That also refers to this involutive process. But in the traditional world, this teaching was articulated in a very concrete way in the organic doctrine of the 4 ages, he said. And
can you stop and just explain when he says doctrine?
Yeah.
He's the one writing it. He's not referring to something prior, is he?
No, he always, his position is that he's just, kind of, he's giving us, he's a scholar of tradition who's just giving you some information that is contained in the tradition itself. He's not, for example, mentions Hesiod as one of the people who write about this doctrine, and then other civilizations have their own versions of it, but he says that they are almost exactly the same in all of these traditional civilizations. So in the Greco-Roman cycle, the 4 ages are represented as the gold, silver, bronze, and iron age. And Hesiod also mentions a kind of a 5th extra age in between the bronze and iron age, which is the era of heroes, which was a partial restoration of the primordial state. So there is also this extra 5th thing going on
Great. Why not?
I mean, you can get a heroic age in Civ 6, so I don't see why not.
Yes.
Yeah.
He also considers the Roman Empire its own kind of heroic cycle as well. And also a partial restoration of the Hyperborean state. And then also the Holy Roman Empire was attempt to restore the Roman ideal. So that's also a partial restoration.
Does he consider Byzantium to be a continuation of Rome?
He does. I will let you know what he thinks about Byzantium a little bit later. So the Hindu tradition also has the 4 ages. They name it Satya Yuga, or also known as Krita Yuga, which is the Golden Age. Then Treta Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, and finally the Kali Yuga, the current Dark Age, which started, I think Genon says that it started like 6,000 BC or something like that.
Right, yeah, way back.
Yeah, so all known history is the Dark Age.
Except for the Roman thing, which was the heroic age, but just for them.
Yes, it was
and
like
they had their own cycles.
Yes, I guess.
It almost sounds
so within the
meaningless
Kali
when you
Yuga,
put it all
you can
together.
have heroic
a partial
ages.
restoration of the Hyperborean ideal, I guess.
Okay.
So he says that there's also like a Persian or Chaldean also versions of the same doctrine of the 4 ages. So he says that no, in the beginning there were no like cavemen or something like this that, science today thinks.
Yeah.
In fact, there were like these more than human beings.
Oh.
And there was no like actual, although he would later call it the civilization of the Golden Age, it was more like an era of gods than a civilization. Is what existed originally.
Yeah, I've been to a Rob Zombie show.
So
I was about to say, isn't that a White Zombie song?
Like. Fuck yeah.
More human than human.
Just a second.
Yeah.
Fucking amazing concert. One of the best ones I've ever went to in my life, actually.
Yeah, White Zombie
concert. Rob
Zombie.
His later years. Yeah. Fucking amazing.
I would have loved to have seen White Zombie. And just as a fun exercise too, count the number of yeahs in any given song of his.
Yeah.
Yeah, my ring down there. It's all yeahs. Like 57 yeahs per song.
Evola also gives us a pretty interesting detail here, and in a minute I'll talk more about it, but for now just this. Yeah. He also says that in the primordial state, there was no death. Okay, so the law of death is actually almost like he says an unnatural fact that appears much later in history.
Ah, wild.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so so the cause of the fall of these almost more than human beings of the Golden Age was race mixing, basically.
Okay, of course.
So what happened was the miscegenation of this divine race with the human race. At least this is how tradition formulates it. We'll see maybe what this actually means for him, if I understand it correctly. So this human race was regarded in tradition as inferior, and this miscegenation was in tradition compared with sodomy or with sexual mating with animals.
Oh,
okay. So I'm sorry. So the people that were more human than human miscegenated with the lowly humans, right?
I guess so. Yes.
And then,
this was the fall. This ended the Golden Age.
Okay. All right. Would you call these like more human than human guys? Maybe astro creeps.
Oh,
maybe demolition style hell American
Les
freak.
Exorcito, Devil Music Volume 1.
We'll talk about him soon, and
all right.
It's an interesting one. In terms of lore, it's interesting.
Oh, I love lore.
So also, Evola says that man was not alone in being an offshoot of this race mixing or miscegenation that happened there. Although I don't know how is he an offshoot, because there were like man waiting other man, and then man is also an offshoot of that. I don't know. It's a bit confusing.
Sure.
But so there were other like more animalistic beings, and some of the animals that exist today are like descendants of them. So basically, there are animals now alive, and many don't exist anymore, who are also descendants of the mixing between the gods and the inferior man.
I see.
It's amazing how much Darwin was off on that.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
He had it
What a fucking
way
idiot.
backwards. Yeah.
Yes. So only in the racially superior human species does this primordial impulse find its direct and adequate manifestation. I think that he means the Hyperborean original impulse or something like that. I don't know. Because I guess humanity is also degraded by the mixing with the inferior parts of it or something like that. I don't know. So you have, like Evola says, many myths that kind of portray this, formulated as like myths about the struggle between the divine races and then the most monstrous entities or animal-like demons in a period before the advent of the human race. So what this myths represent is the struggle between primordial human principle and then intrinsic animalistic potentialities, which were eventually isolated and left behind in the form of certain animal stock.
So why did these immortal, more human than humans, miscegenate with humans?
I don't know.
It seems like then because it sounded like you said that the idea that it was some like something akin to bestiality was part of traditional human culture to do that.
Yes, of the lower kind of humanity which populated Lemuria, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're talking about lemurs.
Well, I guess
prosimians. They're fucking lemurs over there, and that's how they invented death.
I think that he's basically. I think he's saying that black people are like descendants of Lemurians. I think is his idea. And then Aryans are the Hyperboreans, and most of the rest of the humanity is the mix of the two.
Okay.
I think this is his idea. I'm not exactly sure, but sounds like that.
That sounds dumb enough to be right.
Yes. Yeah.
He really did not like evolution.
No. So he actually, evolutionary scientists think are like some ancestors of the modern human were actually these kind of degenerated species that died out, presumably in war with humans, something like that.
I see.
Uh-huh.
More like Julius Evola. Am I right?
Ooh. Exactly.
Bird.
So the Golden Age is an era that corresponds to this original civilization that was naturally and totally in conformity with what's being called the traditional spirit. It's an era of being, an era of truth in a transcendental meaning of that. So it's also an era of living, as I said, which means that death didn't exist in it, at least not for these godlike humans. And it only appeared in the Bronze Age. And of course, it exists in the Dark Age, the current one, but it's only like something that, came into history and in the Third Age. Also in the Silver Age, there was no death as well.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So the Golden Age is the age in which Kronos is the king. And he says mortal people lived as if they were gods. So they were immortal, but for some reason he calls them mortal, which I don't know what does that mean. I have no idea. So listen to this. This is not very interesting. I want you to tell me what you think about this. So he says that the Golden Age, that cycle ended, but those people, the immortal mortal ones, they continue to live upon the earth in an invisible way, mantling themselves in dark mist and watching over mortal men. So he says
Metathetans?
He says that tradition tells us that they went into subterranean regions.
I was just thinking about the Morlocks just a second ago.
Well, they're the opposite of Morlocks,
Yeah, right.
So Hesiod tells us that they are humankind's invisible guardians. Isn't that interesting?
Okay, so the remaining immortals became like chuds.
Yes.
Like they moved underground.
Yeah.
But they take care of us.
They are invisible guardians and they're watching over us. Which I think it's very interesting. I hope that at some point we'll read the. I mean, we mention this all the time. Jacques Vallée's book, because Jacques Vallée, I wonder if he also is into stuff like this. I never read any of his books. I just watched a few interviews with him. But he, heavily implies that he believes that the aliens and the UFOs are actually not aliens.
Right, yeah.
And he often says how there also might be, he says something like humans, but from a different age. And so people think that he's talking about like interdimensional beings or or time travelers or something like this. But what if he means they're like golden age immortals?
Oh.
Fuck
so
yes,
Jacques Vallée is just into Evola, basically.
Yeah,
he's in the Evola universe.
Yeah, I mean, they said a lot of UFOs come out of the oceans and such things.
Sure. Yeah.
So there is also this connection with the North Pole and the UFOs. And North Pole is a big Hyperborean thing. That's where Hyperborea was.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I think it's a thing to explore.
Is there a cool lore name for these subterranean watchers?
I mean, they are Hyperboreans. So
that's really
the race
misleading.
of the Golden Age are Hyperboreans. They lived in Hyperborea. Their continent or island was in the north, in the area corresponding with the North Pole today, as tradition tells us. So
I'm sorry, this is just fucking straight up comic book shit. This dude is just like making his like
Silver
little
Age,
fantasy world, and then Nazis take him super seriously.
Yes.
Like this, you might as well fucking read a comic, like straight up, just like get into Marvel or something. You know?
Totally. We're constantly saying that to these people. Like, just write a book. Write lore.
But he wrote the book.
We're gonna read it and make.
I read the book.
I meant like. Not this kind of book, like
this is supposed to be some sort of like serious politics. He takes this seriously, and this is just straight up like Marvel bullshit.
Yeah.
Yes, except it's rooted in tradition.
Right, this is tradition.
So
tradition tells us that there's a subterranean race of immortal people that watch over us who didn't miscegenate with the lower Lemurians to create death.
Correct. So the tradition calls this place in different ways. What is Hyperborea? For example, Tool is one version of Hyperborea. There's also like Aztlan, he says, of the Aztecs. That's also because many civilizations of like people native to the Americas are actually of Hyperborean origin. I think the Aztecs are one of them.
So he's into the original Reconquista, huh?
Yes. Okay, but there is another race of the Silver Age, and those are the Atlanteans. But I'll talk more about them soon.
Nice.
So Hyperborea is situated in the Arctic, as I said, where North Pole is now. It was, I guess, a continent or an island. I'm not sure. And it was inhabited by these beings that exemplify the Uranian tradition. And they're also the source of various forms of this tradition in other races and cultures and civilizations later on.
Meaning the god Uranus, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the memory of this Arctic seat is present in the traditions of many people, Evola says. Sometimes in a bit confused forms. But if you have a scholar like Evola, he can see, what are the mistakes that people make in their memories, where they're confused and so on, and he can see what's right about it, what's incorrect, and so on. One mistake that people make is that, or cultures make, is that they sometimes confuse the Arctic theme of Hyperborea with the Atlantic theme, or the mystery of the Atlantis. And these are two different things, but some cultures sometimes confuse them. They get confused.
Dumb cultures.
So
get your made-up root races right, people.
Yeah.
What Atlantis is, that's the later seed that succeeded the original polar seed of the Hyperborean race. So what happened at some point was the freezing and the long night that descended in some specific moment on the polar region. And this forced the migration from Hyperborea and ended the first cycle, the Golden Age.
So like a land bridge kind of model here.
Yes.
Hey.
And this is when the Silver Age started, all the Atlantic cycle. So we have, the first Golden Age, that's the polar cycle, Hyperborean one. Then we have the Silver Atlantic age. So we had 2 waves of migration from Hyperborea. The first one was north to south, and the second one was west to east. So Hyperboreans, they reached first North America and the northern regions of the Eurasian continent. And this is why, you have their descendants in those areas throughout history. But then many thousands, like tens of thousands of years later on, there was a second migration wave from Hyperborea. And this one went so far as Central America, and then they reached a land situated in the Atlantic region that doesn't exist anymore. And they established a new center there, modeled after the one in the polar regions. So the Atlanteans...
And this is Atlantis.
This is Atlantis, yes.
Okay.
So the Atlanteans are descendants of the people from the second wave, and before them there were people, Hyperboreans, who left many tens of thousands of years before that and settled in North America and the north of the Eurasia. So, okay. So, from Atlantis...
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I'm confused though. Which ones built the Bosnian pyramids though? That would be the Hyperboreans, right? Because the Atlanteans would be the diggers. No,
I think
because the Hyperboreans are the first wave, right? This would be the first wave built the Bosnian pyramids.
Exactly.
It's
Second
the
wave.
thing.
Atlanteans. They dug the tunnels.
I think he would say probably Atlanteans because he mentions Atlantean influences of their culture in like Thracia and Illyria. And the Balkans, basically.
Okay.
So he probably would say that, but who the fuck knows?
Well, Sam knows. Obviously, he's done the research.
Yeah.
Samir.
So from here, which here I guess means Atlantis, these races of the Second Age, the Atlanteans, they spread to the Americas and to Europe and Africa. Although in Europe and in Eurasia and in America, there were the ones who directly came there from Hyperborea. Now these ones who made Atlantis are also, moving around.
Okay.
And they reach Western Europe in the early Paleolithic. So in mythology, these are the people who correspond, for example, with Tuatha De Danann, the mysterious race that populated Ireland, according to tradition. Who was also not entirely human. These are these Hyperboreans from Atlantis, I guess. And anthropologically speaking, they correspond to Cro-Magnon man, who was clearly superior culturally and biologically to Aboriginal people of Europe which they met in the early Paleolithic there. And for this reason, they were called the Greeks of the Paleolithic.
Okay. Even back then, even fucking 1 million years ago, they were calling them the Greeks of the Paleolithic.
Yes. They also, went to like West Africa, parts of it.
I picture some fucking evolist archaeologist digging for like fucking Paleolithic stone calipers for head measurements and stuff like this.
So were these Atlantean Hyperboreans, did they run some sort of highly advanced civilization?
He doesn't go into
what was the root. What was the nature of their migration? Why were they moving? I mean, it's just
he doesn't
really have a good thing going on Atlantis.
He has he doesn't talk about technology or anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
So Hyperboreans had this. They were. It's strange because at moments he I think he slips into some kind of. He's not really very consistent in his highly, idealistic, esoteric worldview, and sometimes slips into a bit of materialistic thinking when he says that climate influenced them and their worldview and their solar orientation, because they were freezing their asses off there, and so they valued sun and so on. And this also developed into some kind of warrior ethos of conquerors.
Yeah, interesting.
Explorers and so on. So this
it's
is
almost
why...
as if variation and change in their group came from environmental pressures and a changing environment.
I mean, he explicitly
I
says
think you
that,
usually call that evolution. I think.
So he explicitly says that everything froze there, so they were forced to move, and they like worship the sun also because it was so valuable for them.
Well, it's valuable for everybody, dude. Get over it.
Yeah.
We all worship the sun.
But then,
except for the subterranean people, they don't need the sun.
Sure.
Because they're immortal and they can live underground.
For sure, yeah.
They like it cold.
But they're also the same people from Hyperborea. So.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it's a bit confusing. But I guess he would also say, that everything in the material world is just a reflection of the spiritual world. So I guess the phrasing was also that. So, it's not actually materialistic, I guess.
The old spiritual hologram story.
Yes. So these Atlanteans that, now are going everywhere around the globe, also China and Egypt and West Africa and so on, they encounter with these inferior races. He calls them inferior,
Sure.
Which were enslaved to chthonic cults of demons and also mixed with animal nature, which is, I think, what you, Fritz, mentioned before. So these are...
bestiality.
These are people who are like partially animals, I guess.
Yeah.
Furries.
Yes. Chthonic furry witches. This is pretty sweet. Who are like cavorting with demons.
Nice.
I'm totally down for all of this.
I'm with it.
So they had like some struggles with them, and these, memories of that exist in mythology, he says. But eventually a hierarchy was established in the form of a caste system. So a caste system is also, basically racially based. The lower castes are like these inferior races who are also partially animals, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so the second group of Hyperboreans, the Atlanteans, they miscegenated with these aboriginal people of the southern races. And this is what I guess in mythology is referred to as this the race mixing between the gods and inferior humans. But
that's where like literally all the heroes came from.
I guess, yes. This is what led to the fall and to the flood and to the loss of Atlantis.
Oh, he believes... Wait, the flood? As in like the flood? Is he combining lore here?
He says, what various traditions or the tradition referred to as the flood is that. It was the end of the second age, the Atlantean age, the Silver Age. And also...
So Noah's an Atlantean, huh?
Sorry?
Noah's an Atlantean.
I guess so, yeah. So Atlanteans mixed with Lemurians, and eventually it led to the flood and the end of the Silver Age, and to death.
Man, miscegenation is just such bad news. Wow.
It invented death.
Invented death and wiped out a whole age.
Yeah. So, I guess they kind of were race mixing Atlantis itself because the late Atlanteans were like red-skinned.
Okay.
So I guess he's implying that they are also ancestors of Native Americans, or some Native Americans, I think, are Atlantean.
Okay. I mean, I can see a guy named Baron Evola calling Native Americans Redskins. Like, I mean, I do not put that past him.
No, for sure, yeah. But they are the original ethnic stock of various newer civilizations, like the American civilizations, Egyptian, like ancient Egypt. They are these race mixed Atlanteans, but also like people in Creta, Pelasgians, and many other.
Okay. And at that point, we're already in the Dark Ages of Kali Yuga, right?
No. This is only the Bronze Age after the Silver Age.
Hold on, wait. The timeline's fucking me up then. So I thought it was Kali Yuga's been going on for 6,000 years.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. I don't know what you meant when you said then, but...
I guess like Egyptians, classical
Egyptians, that the ones that we know about. I don't know if there's some prehistory to the Egyptian civilization that's maybe in the Bronze Age. I'm not sure. But the people who, according to Evola, the people who founded, so he says that the Egyptian civilization just appeared out of nowhere, that it doesn't have any kind of barbaric prehistory. And this is because the Atlanteans founded it. And so all the Egyptian dynasties had founders who came from the West. And he says that truth, is recorded in Egyptian tradition. He also says that the Chinese and Tibetan traditions also speak of the existence of a Western paradise. The Celts referred it to the land of the living, or Avalon. So Avalon is Atlantis as well.
Okay. Avalon is Atlantis also.
Avalon is Atlantis. Tool is Hyperborea. Avalon is
Tool
Atlantis.
Because it's down south.
Yeah.
All right, Avalon. Okay. I still feel like he's maybe a 1,000 or maybe even more years off about his timing with all this. If this is if the Bronze Age precedes Kali Yuga, but Kali Yuga is the last 6,000 years, I think the entire Bronze Age still fits inside that 6,000 year span. So I'm a little...
Yeah, but that's according to your inferior science.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about my Chthonic upbringing.
You're not informed by tradition.
I was raised by
very
furries
clearly
underground.
States things.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Atlanteans were influenced actually by the people they were mixing with. So actually, the civilization of the Second Age sounds actually pretty cool, because it's. I mean, the Silver Age is pretty fine because there's no death still.
No death. Pretty good.
And then the Atlanteans develop what he calls the civilization of the mother, and influenced by these Lemurian traditions.
Okay, so Lemurian rot in Atlantis, is this what it's going to be? He doesn't. I assume it's a bad thing because of how he talks about women and their place in the spiritual hierarchy.
Of course.
Okay.
It's a bad thing, of course, but so these Lemurian traditions are lunar and feminine and whatever, these things that he doesn't like. But then these Hyperboreans, when they encounter them, they kind of transform them into some kind of a higher form, which is still too feminine and not warrior-like for Evola, but at least it's a kind of a higher form of a feminine-centered civilization than the Lemurian one was, which is, I guess, more kind of animalistic or something. I don't know, something.
Yeah.
So he calls this this kind of Atlantean feminine civilizations. He calls it Demetrian and.
All right. Yeah, Demeter. Yeah.
Which is a better form, and then the Lemurian one is. I guess he named it after Aphrodite's, which is a worse kind of feminine civilization.
That's who he's throwing shade at here? The hot god.
Yes. So he uses the term the Northern Light and the Southern Light. The Northern Light, that's kind of the direct Hyperborean influence, and then the Southern Light is still a light, that's the Atlantean one, but it's, influenced by this kind of Lemurian Aboriginal feminine lunar trends, which make it not anymore a pure Hyperborean civilization.
I see.
But
it sounds okay. So the parallels with how contemporary fascists see the West are pretty obvious there, right? Mm-hmm. The idea that you had this high society of some kind that was corrupted by, I don't know, maybe Magian influence, depends on who you're talking to, but some kind of corrupting influence from an alien culture, society, race, and then the downfall happens. So I'm assuming that this is just that kind of biblical repetition that happens here. Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah.
All right.
So this civilization of the mother is, characteristic for the Second Age, for the Silver Age, the one that follows the primordial civilization of the Hyperboreans, and it's has a communal and even communist characteristic to it. It's egalitarian. Its ideal is a peaceful society.
All right.
Women are kind of central to it, and as mothers, they are seen as the center and foundation of laws. They're also matrilinear. And what develops in such a civilization is a relationship of universal brotherhood and equality. And it establishes a sympathy reaching out beyond all boundaries and differences. And there is a tendency to share whatever one possesses, which is considered to be a gift from Mother Earth. So in it, all men felt themselves to be free and equal. And caste and class distinctions are no longer applied. Also, promiscuity is widespread.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay. And he's against it because... Here's the twist, guys. Here it comes.
So, this is interesting now. I'm not exactly sure.
I'm kidding. That's why he hates it, right? I mean, those are just a list of reasons why he hates it.
Exactly. That's all. That's why he hates it. But still, this is the Silver Age. I mean, this is not so fucking bad compared to the Dark Age, according to him.
No, sure.
There's no death. Sweet. Okay. And there's equality and communism. And no death. I think that's...
And that was fucking Atlantis that was doing that?
Yeah.
Atlantis is way cooler than I thought it was, I have to say.
Yes. I mean,
they were snobs.
I think maybe, can we skip the new Golden Age and just go to the Silver Age? Sounds pretty...
Yeah, Silver Age sounds totally all right.
Silver Age Atlantis. That's where we're going.
So what happens there? So this is now, I'm not entirely sure, maybe you can help me with this. How we get to the Bronze Age is a bit tricky here for me. So, a union between...
Is the answer not just bronze? Like
no,
everybody else does it?
No, the answer is Titans.
Titans!
Of course.
Yay! All right.
There is a union between the sons of heaven and the daughters of men happened. That's the race mixing thing.
Okay.
And so this caused the primordial spirituality to give way to the spirituality of the age of the mother. And there was an offspring of this union. And this was the race of giants, of Nephilim, also known as Titans.
That's Gaia's kids.
So, although the civilization that brought them was this egalitarian, feminist, communalist, communist, universal brotherhood civilization, the Titans or the Nephilim are real assholes. They're like for violence and wickedness, So they have because also maybe what's not so cool about this civilization, the Silver Age, is that it's kind of ruled by a priestly class, I guess. That's what characteristic for it. And then the Titans, they are like the warriors who rebel against this priestly order of the civilization of the mother. And so this is what causes the catastrophe of the flood, the wickedness of the Nephilim or the Titans. And this is how we get into the Bronze Age, which is the age of the Titanic civilizations. So they are the warriors. They try to, I guess, reinstate the original warrior society of the Hyperboreans, but they are too materialistic and violent. So they cannot do it. They try to do it, but they do it in a too materialistic way. So then, so they kind of take down the priestly class, the priestly symbol of the Silver Age, but somehow following the Age of the Titans, and this is even more confusing, we get into the Dark Age, and the Dark Age is, after the Bronze Age, the Age of the Titans, is even worse, because then this is when what's characteristic for the Dark Age is that humanity loses all connection with tradition, not only the solar one of the Hyperboreans, but also the lunar one, more feminine one of the Silver Age. Is what the Kali Yuga is. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with the Bronze Age and with the Titans.
Right.
Maybe I didn't read this too carefully or carefully enough. I mean, I read it, but it's a lot. So
it's a lot to wrap your head around. It's a whole new set of lore and character
also
building.
It's just a dude making shit up as he goes, so that's hard enough.
He's
to
definitely
follow
not making this up.
In any case,
this is tradition.
Right, the doctrine. Yeah. Just for clarity, the Bronze Age ended with essentially the Age of the Titans.
The Bronze Age is I guess, dominated by civilizations of the Titans.
Okay.
The Bronze Age is the age of the Titans.
Titanic
yes,
age. Okay,
yes.
Okay.
I don't know how it ends, but what follows is the Dark Age, when you don't have, like, when you lose connection, or the civilizations are not, I guess, based in tradition, even not the more kind of lunar one of the Silver Age. Although, then he clearly says that some civilizations are based in tradition.
Right, exactly.
And Gannon says so, like, almost to the modern age, like, he thinks that Asian civilizations are based in tradition. So I don't know what the fuck are they talking about.
Yeah. I always felt really bad when I was a kid for the Titans. Because the story that I remember from Greek mythology is that they were just sort of minding their own business, and then Zeus and his people, like, slaughtered them all for literally no reason.
Yeah.
Except that they were, like, ugly.
Yeah.
That's kind of all I ever heard when I was a kid, is that the Titans were ugly, and that's why the gods had to kill them.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Except kind of it was, I guess, the opposite, because Titans established a new age. And,
right.
Abolished the Atlantean civilization, and it was an attempt to reinstitute virility, I guess, of the Hyperboreans. But they did it.
Right.
They did it in a degenerated form because they were degenerate.
Because, like, free sex communism made men into wimps or something.
Oh.
Well, not wimps. They were cruel and violent. So
no, but I mean in the age of DJ Aphrodite.
Yeah. I guess so. But also, I mean, Titans come out from that age, but rebel against it.
Okay.
So I don't know. So there is a part of the book that I skipped, and it's quite a big part. I mean, I read it. I read it in detail, and underlined many parts of it, but I decided not to include it in the notes because it's just too much. Doesn't make
Sure.
It wasn't very interesting. It's the part where he goes through all of these civilizations, which he confusingly calls cycles, which are, I guess, the cycles inside the Dark Age, Kali Yuga.
Sure. Yeah, cycles and cycles.
And he talks about what is traditional and anti-traditional in them. So it's a lot. So he talks about
it's like what? It's like his reviews, like his Yelp reviews of civilizations past.
Exactly. Yes.
Be like, so the Aztecs, they had some good traditional elements, but really,
yes.
If you look at some of the anti-traditional, that's why they got fucked in.
Yes. Yeah, the woke culture of the Aztecs is what brought them down.
I think he likes.
The thing is about the Chinese is that the Chinese are very traditional, right? Yeah. And the Chinese, yes. I can see this.
Yes, it's like lots of pages of something like that. So he talks about the American cycle. This is when he, talks about the Native American civilizations. He talks about the Eastern Mediterranean cycle, the Hebrew cycle, which is very anti-Semitic.
Okay. You don't say.
Yes, the Eastern Aryan cycle is talking about India. Then he talks about a heroic Uranian Western cycle, which consists of the Hellenic cycle and the Roman cycle. So he likes the Roman Empire. So it's basically, according to him, a traditional civilization, but it's very late in the Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
But they managed to reinstate somehow some Hyperborean ideals still. So I don't know how is that Kali Yuga, but okay.
And they're anal, they're Uranian?
They are Uranian, yes.
Uranian.
The Uranian ideal of the Hyperborea.
Okay. Uranal, I think, is the other word you're looking for there.
So the Roman cycle or civilization was the last great reaction against the crisis, I guess, of the modern age or Kali Yuga. And then the Holy Roman Empire was the Northern Teutonic attempt to revive the Roman ideal. Okay. So, you have, like, that's basically, the Holy Roman Empire lasts basically until the 19th century. I mean, but it's an attempt to revive the Roman ideal, which is the last attempt to revive the Hyperborean ideal. So, he's firmly, like, he's very much like a fanboy of the Holy Roman Empire, and
that's why he liked Yaki so much.
Yeah,
he mentioned he liked them, yeah,
and especially he liked Yaki. He thought that Yaki was cute, I think.
Well, Yaki was cute.
he was impressed. I think he probably didn't expect something like that coming out of from an American. So I guess he was impressed. He thought it's a bit superficial or whatever, but it was like nice. Not
Come
bad.
on, dude. We can make shit up too. It's not that hard.
Yes. So he's firmly like we talked about this. He's into Ghibellines against the Guelphs, the aristocracy of the Holy Roman Empire that's against the church and for the power of the emperor over the church.
Right.
Which he thinks is the traditional Hyperborean way how to do it. He doesn't like Christianity at all. We didn't talk about. We talked a little bit about that before, but for him, Christianity is like the enemy. It's anti-traditional. So Christianity was successful in overthrowing, the ancient Roman civilization, but it was not able to completely conquer the Western world just as pure Christianity. So tradition was alive in the Western world. And wherever the Western world achieved some greatness, it did so only thanks to the Roman and classical pre-Christian elements that survived. So it did it in spite of pure Christianity, because Christianity was, mixed up with these older traditions of Hyperborean origin, which he sees, in the Grail mythos, and he really likes the Knights Templar, who for him were not Christians, but were preservers of this ancient tradition. So Christianity was an obstacle that deprived the Western man of the possibility of integrating his authentic way of being in relation to the sacred. But on the other hand, this authentic way of being of the Western man in relation to the sacred also prevented Christianity from completely shaping the Western world into some kind of a tradition, some kind of a civilization which would be completely opposed to these traditional values of the Hyperboreans. So the Western civilization was some kind of a mixture of elements, some kind of a hybrid. So he mentions the Byzantine Empire, and this is interesting. So he says that actually, he's a big fan of the Holy Roman Empire, but he says the Byzantine cycle also displayed a high degree of traditional spirit. So, for example, it was basically a traditional civilization in its institutions. So the emperor was, had the mandate of heaven. His authority came from God. And importantly, for Evola and his view of what tradition is, he had authority over the church and the priests. Even the emperor did. Even in the matters of faith, he was the supreme authority, which for Evola is how it should be. But you know what was the problem? The ethnic substance there was the problem. Because it was characterized by the lower strata, which were into demon worship and anarchy.
Nice.
Word.
Sweet.
Yes.
So Byzantium was cooler than I thought.
Yes. So the forces of dissolution were destined to prevail in Byzantium. On the other hand, the Holy Roman Empire, well, that's another story. The ethnic moment there was very, very good.
Right, they didn't have lower classes and.
Well, listen to this. This is now interesting. I don't know if you remember the Hyperboreans that populated.
How can I forget the Hyperboreans?
You remember? And then you remember the first wave, much before Atlantis.
Sure.
Sure. Oh, well, they come back. Okay. So the Roman idea in the Holy Roman Empire was revived by races of direct northern origin. Okay. So the Germanic element was destined to defend the imperial idea against the church and to restore to new life the essence of this of the ancient Rome, but also of Hyperborea.
Right.
So the Germanic peoples were direct descendants of Hyperboreans, who actually this is now confusing because he said that there was those who left early before the Atlanteans and populated the north of Eurasian continent. But then he also says that the Germans were or Germanic peoples or Aryans, I guess, were the descendants of those who left Hyperborea last. So I'm confused about this. I don't know who exactly they are. I thought that they were these original, the first wave of Hyperboreans. Right. But it seems there were some who were freezing their asses in Hyperborea.
Right. Yes, just trying to deal with it
for thousands and thousands of years, which made them very tough fucking Hyperboreans.
Right.
And they, had in their mythos and in their ethics, they had this Hyperborean ideal very strong.
Well, I will say that today's Northern Europeans really do love the Mediterranean.
Yes.
They are drawn to it. Yeah. In a cycle, even.
Well, they like to travel, these Hyperboreans,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So they were the barbarians, but they were very, they were a vital force that was lacking in actual ancient Rome and in the Byzantine Empire. And they were just what was needed to restore the Roman ideal. And, as they were the last offshoot to leave the North Pole, and there were no rakes mixing with them, they were just
pure as North Pole snow.
Yes. They were directly descended from the primordial tradition.
But did they ride polar bears?
I don't know. He doesn't say about this. But he says that, so what these Germanic Hyperboreans managed to do is they developed this kind of chivalry, which was basically an offshoot of their own kind of, we mentioned this before, this idea of a regal tradition as opposed to the Christian one. So they managed to revive some kind of a traditional or develop or maintain a traditional society within a nominally Christian world, almost without any substantial alteration to the original Aryan ethos. So there are some characteristics of this Aryan ethos, which was nominally Christian but essentially not. So one was that there was an ideal of a hero and a conqueror as opposed to an ideal of a saint.
All right.
They like heroes and conquerors more than they like saints.
Gotcha.
They valued fidelity and honor much more than caritas and humbleness.
Humbleness.
Humbleness. Yes.
The humblestness. They're the humblestest people. Yes. Are these like Southern frauds, right? Yes. And these like cold men. You mentioned last time that the Apollonian culture is a cold,
yes,
hard culture.
Yes.
So these turgid, frigid guys roll on down, bringing with them that pure tradition that they've been keeping up there, safe from miscegenation for thousands of years, hanging out with polar bears, riding them around, going to work on them. And
no work. The Hyperboreans have no work. They hate work.
They don't know work. Right.
Nice.
Who doesn't hate work? Everybody hates work.
Yes.
Oh, except I forgot. Except for the lower castes who love it because it's their correct place in life. All right, I'm with you now. I'm with you. I'm actually really. I got to say, I'm enjoying the lore.
Yes. So they also thought that the worst evil is not sin, but it's cowardice and dishonor.
Sure.
They also kind of opposed the whole. Or ignored the whole not opposing evil stuff. And they excluded from their ranks anyone who took the thou shall not kill thing seriously.
It's okay.
So this is how they maintained their fucking actual tradition, the Hyperborean one, and the Aryan ethos. And you know what else was very important?
Oh man, is it?
You loved it.
Is it leaving kids to be eaten by wolves?
No, it was the test of arms. It was fucking dueling.
Dueling,
okay?
Of
course.
Course. That's tradition. That's what I know. That's the old Aryan honor code.
Yes, that was the fundamental way of settling disputes. It was through strength. Okay, so this is what maintained the spirit.
Man, it's I understand what David sees in all this. It's pretty clear. It's a lot of fun fantasy lore, and you get to duel. That's right up his alley.
Very predictable.
Yes.
And not very imaginative.
No.
I don't know. I think some of it's pretty imaginative. He made up quite a lot.
It would be a good comic book, as you said, or like a fantasy novel or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially everything that he likes are like some horrible, like bad guys,
Oh, yeah. And everything that he hates are just the best.
Yes. Yes.
Just a bunch of demon-worshipping communists with, like, no borders and free love and just
communism and universal brotherhood and no work and no death. Yeah. Well, he talks more, and it's all quite predictable, as you said, so I'm going to finish up very quickly now. This is like, it was a good start. It was fine with the Holy Roman Empire, the Ghibellines, it's all cool. But there is a gradual secularization and materialization of the political idea. And when an empire ceases to be sacred, it really ceases to be an empire. And that's what happened. So the emperors lost their mandate of heaven, and that meant that the empire lost its universal and higher quality, and that led to an organism, like an organic society, becoming a mechanism, and which also meant it became much more authoritarian. So because they lacked this universal and heavenly character, the emperors became basically like tyrants, and they wanted
Spengler's Caesarean period. He said at the end of
they wanted to dominate society completely. There was no more autonomy, which was characteristic for an authentic empire. And there was more control. And then the lesser rulers, the kings, also for their fiefs, they claimed the same principle of absolute authority, which became typical of the empire, and which directly leads, according to Evola, to the formation of the nation state, which he hates. Doesn't like the whole idea of nationalism at all. He thinks it's kind of the very modern, completely modern thing, and which substitutes a traditional order of an empire that has some kind of autonomies inside of it, and so on.
No. This is new nationalism. You're gonna love it.
Yeah. So then, after some time, absolutism develops. This is an attempt to reinstitute this traditional ideal, but it's done in a very materialistic way, and only accelerates the road to various revolutions, which don't help at all, according to Evola. Let me see what I have here in the end.
Sounds like the message of this is do nothing, like Siege.
Yes,
like Siege is always said.
It's very close to that, actually. It's interesting that what he says, the term that he uses. I think he actually has. I don't know. Did someone mention Dune last time?
Yes, you did. No.
You probably did. That sounds like a you thing, yeah.
Or no, wait, did we say this outside of the episode?
Maybe.
You know what? Sorry, it was a patron comment.
Okay. So in the best book, in my opinion, the Dune series is the God Emperor of Dune thing with the giant fucking war. What's I'm forgetting words now.
Miscegenation.
No. So is it Leto the Second? He becomes the like immortal lord, like of emperor of the universe, and then when he has the golden path like thing that because he can see in the future, so he basically oppresses the universe. It's a bit convoluted and doesn't make so much sense. But the idea is that humanity will rebel against his authority, eventually kill him, which happens. And then this will result in the scattering, I think, is the term that's being used, of humanity across the universe, which will ensure that humanity will survive. But Leto saw that, so this is why he oppressed everyone, so they would scatter around after his death, is the idea. And it's interesting that Evola uses that term scattering as his way to explain colonialism. And he says that this is what happened after the death of like traditional empires in Europe. It resulted, like the death of an organism resulted in this scattering around the globe in the form of colonialism, which reminded me of Dune.
So does he have a negative view on colonialism or what?
I think he does. I don't know. He doesn't talk much about it, but again, his master, the one he calls master, René, certainly has a negative view of it. So maybe he followed him in that. I'm not sure.
Interesting.
So after that, in the super modern part of the Kali Yuga in the last few hundred years, tradition in the West continued only to exist underground in secret currents such as Hermetism and Rosicrucianism.
Okay.
Those are the people who have some contact with tradition since the empires were gone. Then he talks a lot about Russia and America. He hates them both very, very much. He thinks that they're kind of similar to each other in their materialism. He thinks that, the Kali Yuga is the age of the fourth estate, the worst estate, the proletarians. And America is formally like the state of the third estate, of the merchants, of the bourgeoisie. But he thinks that eventually it will also completely transform into a civilization of the plebeians. And I think he thinks that Russia and the Soviet Union are destined to win, I think. Because they are more in tune with the Kali Yuga,
Okay.
So that will happen, I guess, in the future. Soviet Union will win.
All right.
So
not going great right now.
Yes.
They've, not around.
So there is no future for modern civilization, is his message at the end of this book. It's all doomed. There are some people who are people of a higher order who live on spiritual heights, even now, even though they are unknown to each other. They do not belong to this world. So there are other people who are kind of disoriented, but they have some unfocused, unclear idea of rebelling and trying to free themselves. So the first kind of people maybe could lead these confused people who want to rebel in some confused way. These higher people who are not people of this world. Maybe there is some hope in that. Although the modern civilization is doomed to, disappear, maybe some of these higher people and the people who follow them will, somehow maintain some traditional values until the next cycle begins. I think.
So, sounds like you're saying is that January 6th was planned by UFOs.
Well, maybe, yeah, maybe. He probably wouldn't. He would probably hate January 6th. I think these would are exactly the people he would think of as the worst possible.
Not enough like monocle guys there.
No.
Couple monocle guys there.
Yeah, but he then says there is another path, and he explicitly calls it the path of acceleration, and which is maybe suited for some people. And then he also uses another kind of word, another phrase for that path, which is a path of riding the tiger. And that's something that we'll talk about in one of the future episodes on Evola, because we'll talk about his book, which has exactly the same title of riding the tiger.
It's a phrase you hear a lot in Intermarium circles these days, coming out of New Europe over there.
Yes. They want to ride tigers.
They do.
Okay, so
not Siberian ones.
No.
I'll admit, this second half of the book has me a little bit fucked up and lost. I think I understood the first half a bit more.
Yeah.
Now, if you were gonna kind of summarize the whole book now for the end, how would you do that?
I mean,
let's try to, because I'm trying to put them together.
Okay, so there are time is not linear; it's cyclical. First,
okay.
There is one tradition which is synonymous with truth, and that's it. We are also, contrary to what evolutionists think, we live in a world that's constantly declining. So these cycles are getting, from very good to worse, and then to the worst. But I guess the good news is they are doomed to. We're completely doomed to fail as society in that sense. But then another cycle will begin, and it will begin from the beginning, from the best possible position, which is the golden age, which is completely in tune with this one truth and one tradition. This tradition is, at least in this cycle, in the last tens of thousands of years or hundreds, I don't know, is the Hyperborean one. The Golden Age, which was the best age, is dominated by this Hyperborean race of basically gods who are immortal and who come from the North Pole and move around the whole world. And then at some point mix with the lower inferior races, some of which come from the other sank continent that doesn't exist anymore, called Lemuria.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the Silver Age, which is not that great according to Evola compared to the Golden Age. So not completely in tune with tradition, but still there is no death, at least. So the northern Hyperborean pole, the seat of the Hyperboreans, is lost now. It's completely frozen. But some Hyperboreans establish a new center of tradition and civilization on Atlantis, and then they move around the globe. But what Atlanteans do, these second Hyperboreans, unlike the first ones, is they race mix with the lower inferior peoples, and this leads to kind of a mutation of the Hyperborean tradition into a more matriarchal, egalitarian, communist one.
Yeah, the one we hate.
Yes.
The worst one.
Yes. Also, then there are the Titans, which are kind of a warrior caste of people who rebel against this matriarchal, communistic, feminist brotherhood of all man's civilization of the Second Age. They rebel against it and want to establish a new kind of warrior-like civilization that would, in this warrior characteristic, be similar to the original Hyperborean civilization from the First Age, but they're also wicked and too materialistic. So this rebellion leads, and they're also descendants of, they are the direct offspring of race mixing. They are the equivalent of the Nephilim. So they are the kind of the wicked race that also leads to the fall or the flood and the loss of the Atlantean civilization, and leads us into the Bronze Age, which also is the age where death is introduced. So the death era of the Bronze civilization is dominated by these Titanic civilizations, and then eventually the tradition even becomes, the connection with it even weaker and weaker. So somehow, I guess, we get from the Bronze Age into the Dark Age, where I guess there are no civilizations based on any tradition, even not only the solar one, but also the lunar one, characteristic of the Silver Age, except there are.
Sure, right. Like everywhere, apparently.
Yes, like the Roman Empire, for example, which is, I guess, a heroic attempt to revive the Hyperborean ideal in the middle of the Dark Age of the Kali Yuga, which it's an empire that Evola likes a lot. And then the last attempt, at least in the Western world, to revive this spirit is the Holy Roman Empire, which had a good thing going for it, because the ethnic substance of the people who were trying to revive this Roman ideal were also the fucking Hyperboreans who didn't race mix. Which are the Germans. The Germans are the Hyperboreans who didn't race mix, and who left Hyperborea last. They were freezing there until all the wuss Hyperboreans left and race mixed and lived in Atlantis, and whatever they did, those assholes were freezing there, and this made them racially superior. So they were able to temporarily, at least, revive the Roman or Hyperborean ideal in the form of the Holy Roman Empire. In the end, this failed. It was also, a lot of it is the fault of the Catholic Church, which usurped the divine rule of the emperors and wanted more power for themselves. So he's firmly on the side of Caesaropapism, I think, not of Papo-Caesarism. So he thinks that the emperor should dominate the clergy, even in matters of fate, because the emperor, like in the old days of Hyperboreans, should also be the high priest. That's how it's supposed to be, and the church kind of reversed that, which also accelerated the fall of tradition into shit.
Yes.
So we live now in the final stages of the Dark Age. It will inevitably become worse and worse. But there are some men of tradition who are not men of this age who exist, and maybe they can do something. I guess we'll talk about what can they do, if they can do anything when we analyze his other books, which are about that in a way, what these men of tradition can do in the Kali Yuga.
But is this is fascism and National Socialism also an attempt to?
They were attempts.
Rekindle.
I mean, he has books about both Italian fascism and National Socialism. So I think there were partial attempts to revive some aspects of tradition, although they had anti-traditional aspects in them. Okay, so there are like Italian fascists and Italian fascists like terrorists who hate Evola, and because they don't consider him a fascist, because there are these fascists who see fascism as a revolutionary movement that's like a continuation of the French Revolution, for example.
Right.
And he's explicitly against that. He identifies himself as a reactionary, of course. But he saw that some aspects of fascism, the ones that wanted to, were into the Roman Empire and the Roman ideal and hierarchy and so on, were good ones, but they were also plebeian leftist aspects that he didn't like. So this is why he preferred the SS.
Right.
He saw as some kind of a new knightly order, I think, and worked for them and so on. But so there is also another thing that we didn't mention, is that the immortal people of the first stage are still alive and invisible and live somewhere, I guess underground, I guess in Shambhala or somewhere like that, and watch over us. And maybe they are the guys in the UFOs. I don't know.
Yeah, let's here's hoping. Here's hoping. I kind of love it now. Maybe it's just Stockholm syndrome kicking in, but I'm super into it now. I love this. It's essentially like somebody being like, well, after the sundering of the elves, Pope John II kicked in, and it's a crazy mix of deep
it's
fantasy
completely
lore
fucking ridiculous
and shit about the Vatican, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean.
But I have criticisms too. I'm not.
You're not a complete fan,
of course.
Okay.
Well, I'm curious though. Okay, what about old skeletons? From before the Bronze Age, before death was invented. How did they get there?
About the Bronze Age is not the historical Bronze Age. Okay, the Bronze Age existed. What he called, it's not the Bronze Age in the sense of art.
Our Bronze Age. That was confusing me. Yeah,
it's a Bronze Age in terms of how the ancient Greeks called it.
That's totally on me. I was trying to make it something real.
No.
My bad.
The Bronze Age existed probably 50,000 years ago or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's
I see. Okay.
It's, he mentions that all of these civilizations didn't leave any trace behind them. And he has
convenient
explanations for it. One is that in Chinese tradition, some of these, the oldest people are called people with soft bones. Okay. So maybe they just decay, their bodies decayed or something like that. So they were not able to find them. They were also burning their dead, I guess.
All right. But I mean, that's not the only thing you can find. Obviously, they're going to leave behind a material culture of some kind.
I guess, okay, so the Hyperboreans are, their thing, it was the North Pole. So that's, I guess, under ice now, I guess.
That's the best place to find shit, is under thousands of years of ice.
And then they're also immortal, so they're still alive. So there's, they don't have any, because they still exist, only they're invisible. Okay.
Invisible. Not incorporeal, right? But invisible.
I'm not sure exactly, but
invisible
to us, yes, they are in some other dimension or underground or something like this.
Right. Yeah. Wow. This
is completely fucking idiotic. I'm sorry.
I love it. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because this is like a key thinker in a rising political movement in Europe right now. You know,
I expected this to be more coherent than it was. This is gibber. This is fucking nonsense.
It's pretty bad. Yes. I mean, maybe I was kind of sick of it, so I was not so good in presenting all of it. But I mean, I think if I presented more, it would be even more confusing.
No, I think you're right.
Because it would be so much of this, like his analysis of the ancient Indian civilization, or the ancient Hebrews, it's like a lot.
You know how he said he was like not a fascist, but a super fascist?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe this whole Hyperborean thing is what he said when somebody called him boring.
Yeah.
Explain some of it.
Yeah.
I'm not just boring, fella. I'm hyper boring.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
See what I did there? I made a pun. I dragged it out a bit. Pretended it was like a point, but in the end, it was just a silly pun.
Yeah.
That's my ketonic sensibilities.
He's hyper boring, yeah.
I'm always japing over here.
Yeah.
That's part of our plebeian ways on the Empire.
Plebeian frat boy culture.
That's right.
Like, I think this could be good lore for like some kind of a fucked up science fantasy type, like Dune or something like that.
Yeah,
you know,
probably has been.
You could use it for something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially
imagine basing your politics around this, though. Like, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah,
imagine basing your ideas about why your national identity should mean something around this. You know.
Well, he's against national identity. You know.
So. Yeah. That's what also fucking blows my mind is. Well, I guess when we were talking about the Intermarium lately, we were talking a lot about how Evola and Ernst Junger play into that sort of ideology as far as Ukraine is concerned. But again, it sounds like I'm not sure what they see in it then, because their whole thing is to have independent nation states that are federalized into some kind of nation state.
I mean, okay, so I was a bit wrong when I said he's against nationalism, but he also thinks that like natural nations exist.
Okay, all right, that is in line with what their thing is against like petty nationalisms, but we want the real thing.
Yeah, but
which is
also he wants aristocracy, who doesn't have a nation and an empire, which is multinational. Yeah.
Well,
Christ.
Yeah.
What a great mind.
Yeah, but so all of this was just to say that the crucial thing for us is that the a few sentences that he says in the end about acceleration and riding the tiger.
Yes.
Yeah.
So maybe all of this nonsense has just you just indoctrinate some 20-year-old Italian guy in 1966 with all this bullshit, and you get into the point that nothing makes any sense, and you should plant bombs for the CIA, and then see you in the golden age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
So I guess next we will be riding the tiger with him.
No. We'll before riding the tiger, we'll do one other book of his, because he has like these 3 main books. He wrote a lot of books about all kinds of subjects, like the Holy Grail, yoga, Buddhism, and so on. But he has like these 3 books which are kind of more in a more synthetic way present his worldview. One is the one that we just covered, which is his masterpiece, if you didn't know.
Yeah, clearly. Yes.
Then the other one is Riding the Tiger, but before that, it is almost like a trilogy. We'll do the second book, which is called Man Among the Ruins, which also inspired one of our favorite
his
bands.
neo-folk.
Above the Ruins, yes.
Right.
Which is his most like kind of an attempt of like laying out some kind of a political doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go into that, and then we'll do Ride the Tiger.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, we're getting a lot of Evola here.
Yes, I mean these 2 books are shorter. Like they're each half size of this book.
Well, that's charitable of him, I suppose.
Indeed.
Yeah. It won't be about Hyperboreans and so on. It will be about why jazz is bad and such things.
Oh, of course. Okay. God damn it. As a jazz podcast, I strongly object to this. He lost me there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had me up until that.
Yeah, I was all ready for that bunch of communist furries dressed like lemurs, fucking going bonobo on each other and handing out food. But he had to fuck with jazz.
I bet you his taste in music sucks too. He probably likes fucking something real dumb.
Yeah. I mean, for sure he likes Wagner.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, who knows? I mean, he had his, Dadaist phase, so he might. He probably was into jazz at some point.
Yeah.
Well, let's find out next time on our full episode dedicated to Evola's opinions on jazz.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
I'd love to get the professor back for that, since it's his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Well, all right, boys.
Now I'm gonna go listen to White Zombie, I guess.
Yeah, I've been. That song's been in my head this whole time. 90s
flashback.
Yeah. All right. So I guess what I think we're trying to say here is we should dig through the ditches, burn through the witches, right? Maybe slam in the back of my Dragula.
Yeah, I was gonna say, hell yeah,
yeah.
Evola is garbage.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys.
All right. Later.
Bye.
Hey there, Fritz here from The Empire Never Ended. This has been one of our weekly free episodes for free people. But for premium people, we also have weekly premium episodes, which you can get at patreon.com/tenepod, TENEPOD, and also follow our various social media things in the show description there. Like and subscribe them. Follow them. Like and follow and subscribe. Follow them. Do it.